Regardless if you're a solo dev or in a team, the creation of a roadmap is an essential element for your game. But in this video I'm going to talk about more than just the development roadmap. I'm also going to talk about the short-term planning and the marketing roadmap. And also at the end, I'll drop a few bonus tips. But let's start with the development roadmap. The development roadmap should kinda look like this: a document file with a huge title, as well as a table of content. There is this thing called a game design document, and in my opinion, merging these two things together is not entirely a bad idea. The difference between these two is that the roadmap's purpose is to lay out strategic planning and tell you when and what to make in what order. It gives you a timeline and a deadline for different features of the game, and prevents you from making anything that you're not supposed to make, also known as future creep. The game design document, on the other hand, is more focused on explaining what the game is and what it does. So let's see how a combination of these two would look like, starting with the hook. The hook is a short summary of what your game is going to look like and play like, and if there is a story, what is the story about? Think of an elevator pitch, but for yourself or for your team. The purpose of the hook and why I want to have it in the same document is because it helps remind me what I'm making every time I want to revisit the roadmap. After the hook comes the loop. Think of it this way: if I was going to explain the loop of an average RPG, here's what it would look like. You go inside dungeon, you find a thing, or you kill a thing, you kill a bunch of mobs on your way in and out, and you receive a bunch of XP and loot. Next quest, same thing. Why is this fun? Because you get to do a quest and you receive a bunch of loot, and you level up. That was just a generic explanation of the loop, but it was a basic example of it. Given the fact that every RPG plays that way, I would suggest you add a few more layers to it to make your game more interesting. Think of it this way: if you can create the loop in its bare bones format, playtest it, and it's fun despite being bare bones, then you have made a good loop. The next chapter is called First Build, which is not technically the first build because you're going to make a lot of test builds before this one, but this is the one that matters. Give yourself a list of core features to make. These features are what makes most of your game, but in different variations. Then give yourself a deadline, let's say 3 months. All these features should be completed within the deadline, and that is when you create your first build. If you fail to achieve all these features within the 3 months, that means that the project is too heavy for you and you should start over and pursue a different project, or do a heavy course correction on the project. Keep in mind that if you do heavy changes to the game, you need to start over with this phase and give yourself a new 3-month deadline. Once this phase is over, the next phase begins: the divine plan. The divine plan is what prevents future creep. It's a plan made by God. Who are you to argue with the divine plan? You cannot change it, it needs to be done, but most importantly, nothing else is allowed to be done until the divine plan is done. So in the divine plan, you come up with a more detailed list of features, and a more generous deadline, such as 2 years. The way these features are set up, they lead to a complete game. What I mean is that even though the game will not be perfect at the end of this deadline, it should be in a shippable state, in case you run out of time and resources. If you have to release the game at this deadline, you should be able to. When you create the rule that no future outside of the listed features are allowed to be made, you prevent future creep. However, while you're working on the list, you will constantly come up with new ideas. But the divine plan is set in stone, it cannot be changed. So you write them down in the next chapter. Future Creeper's Diary. You may have heard the term stretch goals before. This is something similar. This is the list that comes after the divine plan, and the future creepy ideas that you come up with during the development of the divine plan can now be worked on. What's important is that this list is what can be done in a patch if you run out of time. Let me give you an example. Cluster Truck had 90 stages at launch, 9 worlds, 10 stages each. But the way the game is designed, it could have launched with 60 stages if the team had run out of time or resources. Most stage-based games can be done this way. There is no finish line. The end user won't know how many worlds you had planned from the start unless you leak that information. In fact, if you're a new developer who is working on your first game, I would recommend making it in this format. Throughout the years, I've been very consistent when it comes to formatting my short-term planning. This is how I usually do it. I either do it on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. This is done in a separate document and I always mark the done tasks with green. For my past projects, I sometimes planned multiple months ahead of time, but that's because back then I didn't do the whole roadmap or game design documenting. These days, I do my short-term planning on a weekly basis instead, but it can feel a bit too much. My suggestion is to do 1 month at a time, and then plan the next month afterwards. It's also important to schedule the rest of your life. Here are some examples of how I did my scheduling during the more intense times. Today, on the other hand, I do daily schedules on paper like this, and then I checkmark them, and of course these two formats can be combined. Marking the text with green and applying check marks is an efficient way of patting yourself on the head. When it comes to independent game development, marketing is often a misunderstood term. A lot of developers think that marketing means showing your game to a lot of people and gaining wishlists. No, marketing means making a game that can be shown to a lot of people and gaining a lot of wishlists. The emphasis is on the can be. The marketing roadmap needs to be made simultaneous with your development roadmap. And while you're working on the hook and the loop, you need to ask yourself, can this hook and loop easily be marketed when I start marketing? If your hook sounds good in text, can it also be shown in picture? Can you produce a single screenshot for your game, and would that single screenshot make a person stop scrolling on social media and stare at the screenshot? Ask yourself, what are you going to tell the YouTubers and event managers in your marketing email 2 years from now? What is going to be your email headline? Will it be enough for them to be amazed and make them click on it? In other words, can you sell your game in 1 sentence? While your development roadmap focuses on creating the hook and the loop, your marketing roadmap needs to figure out how to sell the hook and the loop. And this needs to be tested in an environment early on. If the hook and the loop doesn't grab the attention of people in its first stages, then its chances of doing it in its later stages is also low. Once you reach the first build stage in your development roadmap, you need to have a plan for it in your marketing roadmap as well. This can be something small, such as showing the build to a few friends and maybe even have them play it and give their opinion on it, or doing it publicly and see what random people think of it. And most importantly, make a lot of footage of it and show it on social media. The important thing in this stage is to get feedback. You most likely don't have a Steam page for your game this early on, and your goal should be to use the early feedback in case you need to do a course correction. That being said, if you have social media, Steam publisher page, or a mailing list, you can always guide people towards them and build up your audience that way. You also need to plan a lot of research in your marketing roadmap. The research can be anything such as watching my marketing videos or discovering big game events and small Steam events, and then start writing down their contact info and tell them to put you in their mailing list so they can inform you when new Steam events are happening. And of course, finding YouTubers and streamers and writing down their information as well. These are only a few examples of what can be done in the marketing roadmap. I want to dedicate this section to a few browser extensions that has allowed me to focus and not accidentally lose time. So, for me, using sites such as YouTube is essential, both for learning game development and marketing and also for making videos on game development and marketing. But the issue is that after TikTok was launched, every website wanted to be like TikTok. What TikTok does is something we call short-form, high-reward, instant gratification content, which is the most brain-rotten, cancerous form of content consumption you can think of. But TikTok is not an essential platform, at least not for my generation. YouTube, on the other hand, is. And with YouTube Shorts, things got complicated. So I turned them off, using this extension. You won't see any shorts when you use this extension, and even when you decide to watch a short, it plays it as if it's a normal video. But then I asked myself, why stop there? So I installed another extension called Unhook, which completely shuts down the entire YouTube algorithm. And for the first time, I felt like I was the one using YouTube and YouTube is no longer using me. Look at this, there is nothing here. The homepage is completely blank. Pure silence. Peace at last. I should probably not have told you about this extension because the YouTube algorithm is how you find my videos. Of course, once a week or two, I turn it off and I let the algorithm have its way with me for a few hours. Then I add a dozen videos to my watch later list, I turn it back on, I don't turn it off again until I've watched every video in my watch later list. And it also encourages me to visit the subscriber tab, which is where you can find my videos in case you decide to use the extension. This creates order in the consumption of media. Anyways, later on I decided to do this on Twitter too. See, a few months ago I quit Twitter, and the reason was that Twitter had also turned into TikTok. Somebody posts a video clip, and then everyone in the comment section of that tweet start posting their own video clips, and you end up stuck in the short form brain rot loop. So I turned the whole thing off using this extension, thus getting rid of the For You tab and the entire sidebar, where all the who to follow and trending stuff shows up. And it does some aesthetic changes too. I guess I'll start posting on Twitter again, feel free to follow me. And that's the end of the bonus tips. I just want to introduce you to these extensions because I felt like they are relevant. I mean, you can plan things and follow roadmaps if all your time is being spent doom scrolling and watching brain rot, right? Thank you for watching.